Yo! Welcome back to Brent Lab, where we combine physical fitness, mental health, and spiritual principles to create a better life. Today, we're diving into how exercise can be a powerful tool to manage anxiety. Before we start, I just want to say that I am not a therapist, a psychiatrist, an exercise scientist, a research scientist, or a medical professional in any way. To be clear, I'm not qualified to give medical advice in any way whatsoever. I'm just a dude with anxiety who likes to work out. My anxiety used to be really bad, but I found safe and effective ways to make it much better. So that being said, today we're going to cover three things. So firstly, where are we as a society at with anxiety? How bad has it gotten? Where did it used to be? And how serious should we be about addressing it? Secondly, we're going to look at how effective exercise is at treating anxiety. Lastly, when looking at something's efficacy, I always find that it's helpful to look at it in contrast to something else that's trying to do the same thing. So we're going to look at how exercise measures up against psychiatric medication used for anxiety. First things first, how bad is anxiety in our society right now? Well, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, just under 20% of adults in the United States have some form of anxiety condition or anxiety disorder. So there are 258 million adults in the United States, and 40 million of them have some form of anxiety. I was sort of shocked by this. For some reason, I always thought it was depression, but it turns out anxiety is now the #1 mental health concern in the United States.
He was #1!
After finding that out, I was shocked by it. I just wanted to find out what the #1 physical health concern was, so I looked that up. And it turns out, by far, that is heart disease. Heart disease for both men and women in the United States accounts for 1 in every 4 deaths. I don't mean to go off track here, but I'm just pointing out that anxiety is the #1 mental health concern in the United States. Heart disease is the #1 physical health concern in the United States. So before we dive any deeper, I just want to emphasize exercise is such a fantastic tonic for both of those things. But enough about that. Moving on to the second thing. So how effective is exercise at treating anxiety or helping to manage anxiety? So on a physiological level, as far as anxiety is concerned, what does exercise do? Exercise increases the production of endorphins, which are natural mood lifters. It also boosts the levels of neurotransmitters like serotonin and no one knows how to pronounce that, both of which help to regulate mood. Harvard Medical School reports that exercise can be as effective as antidepressant medications for some people. Exercise not only alleviates anxiety, but it also prevents it. It helps by reducing stress, improving mood, boosting self-esteem, and promoting better sleep. The Anxiety and Depression Association of America reported that in one study, they found that people who got regular, vigorous exercise were 25% less likely to develop anxiety and depression. Okay, so I think with all of those factors playing in, it's safe to say that a sedentary lifestyle can increase our risk of anxiety. I think it's self-evident that our bodies are designed to move, and a lack of exercise and physical movement can disrupt our mental well-being. After doing all of this research, I think someone could go as far to say that a lack of physical exercise is actually a cause or a contributor to anxiety, and a big one. Okay, so if we're going to operate from that foundation, lastly, we want to look at another treatment for anxiety. How does exercise measure up against psychiatric medication? Again, I just want to emphasize I'm not a medical professional. I'm just looking at this stuff through the lens of my personal experience. So I looked at a few things to figure this out here. Firstly, I took the 19 most prescribed medications for anxiety. Then I looked up how much they could reduce the symptoms of anxiety for people with generalized anxiety disorder, and that was measured in a percentage. The large majority of them reported to be able to reduce anxiety symptoms from 50 to 70%. The average across all 19 medications was 67%. So then I looked at how exercise could help reduce anxiety symptoms for people with generalized anxiety disorder. And I found a few different answers. So the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry reported that it could reduce symptoms of anxiety by 20%. Harvard Medical School reported 20 to 30%. And the American Journal of Preventive Medicine reported 20 to 50%. So look, I'm no scientist. This is a very rough, ballpark, back of the napkin, high level way of looking at this. But according to some pretty legitimate sources, you can see anywhere from a 20 to 50% reduction in anxiety symptoms because of exercise. And on average, with the medications that I looked at, you would see an average across all 19 of them of a 67% reduction. Now that depends on which ones are taken and how and when and in what dosages and so many other factors, but that was the average across the 19. Okay, so those are the upsides of exercise and psychiatric medication as far as anxiety is concerned. So that prompted me to consider, what are the downsides? Because I was curious for myself, how many side effects are associated with the psychiatric medications just that I have taken? So not all 19 of the ones on the most prescribed list, but just of the ones that I have taken. I was shocked to find that there are 441 potential side effects associated just with medications that I have experienced. Seriously, 441. Here's a list. So that begs the question, how many side effects does exercise have? Now, in fairness, I didn't factor in side effects that came from super intense, vigorous overtraining. I looked at side effects from regular, normal, recommended amounts of exercise. By that same token, the 441 side effects I just reported to you from the medications were based on recommended dosages. In other words, it's not like someone had to take too much of that medication in order to potentially be subject to those side effects. In the same way that someone doesn't have to overtrain to potentially be subject to these exercise side effects. Okay, so all that said, how many were there? And the answer is 9. Yes, you heard me correctly, only 9. And they're muscle soreness, injury, fatigue, dehydration, dizziness and lightheadedness, digestive issues, skin irritation, sleep disturbances, assuming you exercise too close to bedtime, and hormonal imbalances. So guys, some of the medications that I looked at had side effects that numbered well over 100. 9, by comparison, is ridiculously low. And I looked at some of the side effects on the medication list. I tried my best not to, but I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that the exercise side effects were far more mild. So what can we conclude from all this? In reflecting in my experience with psychiatry and my mental health struggles over the years, I actually think we've done a much better job of making exercise a part of the conversation when it comes to mental health treatment. The one thing I would say there, though, is it needs to be the first part of the conversation we have. When doing this research, I got borderline infuriated reflecting on every experience I've had with a psychiatrist over the years. I'm not salty. I am very grateful for the medical professionals I've had access to throughout my life, and I think they've done a wonderful job. I just feel like the first question I should have been asked is, do you exercise? And in years past, before I became passionate about it, the answer would have been no, and the response should have been, well, you need to. I mean, if you've ever struggled with mental health like I have, imagine going into a doctor's office and saying, I've got anxiety. And the doctor replies by saying that they can prescribe a medication that could reduce your anxiety by 20 to 50%. It has 9 side effects, and any other medication that they could prescribe would have at least 10 times that. Oh, and also it will improve virtually every other aspect of your life outside of mental health. Oh, and it's free. Your immediate response would be, sign me up.
I volunteer as tribute.
Well, that's exercise. I mean, I have literally been in a doctor's office where they have said to me, we don't really understand exactly how these medications work, But in order for us to find the right cocktail of medications for you, we essentially need to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Wouldn't, based on this data, be just as logical for them to say, all right, I'm going to, in addition to the medication, prescribe working out on a regular basis. And I want to make sure you do that consistently too. Okay, I'm sorry, now I'm just basically venting to you. But all that said, I'll leave you with this question. If our goal truly is efficacy, and when we want something to be effective, we do everything we can to minimize risk, why isn't exercise the first thing that's prescribed 100% of the time? I guess what I'm saying from my personal experience, just mine, I wish that exercise would have been the first thing that was prescribed. And then if that alone didn't work, that it was still prescribed and heavily encouraged in conjunction with medication. And I think that's what should be done for everyone moving forward. It's like, hey, this is at least going to knock this issue down by 5, 10, 20, 50, whatever it is percent. And then if you need medication on top of that, great, we'll do that. But this thing needs to be done too. And you might say, hey, well, you can't prescribe exercise. And no, that's not true. I've had injuries before and I was prescribed physical therapy. I went to a facility where I worked out with someone. They guided me through it. They trained me. Physical fitness was part of my treatment. Okay, well, I really appreciate y'all letting me have that vent sesh. I feel a lot better. I just want to wrap up by saying if you're someone that struggles to grasp onto something unless it is proven to you, I think this channel might be for you. It's like a science class. An idea will be discussed and then reinforced by a demonstration. Here's how it works. I will present an idea to you, and you will use your body, your strength, and your gusto to demonstrate that idea to yourself. We can connect, I can coach you, and I look forward to walking this path together. It's been real. See you next time.